Joining us now is General David Petraeus, who wrote that article. He's also, of course, the former CIA director and served as commander of U.S. Central Command and commander of NATO and U.S. forces in Afghanistan. It's very good to see you, General. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Andrea.
Well, the theme of your article is that the Afghanistan war did not have to turn out this way. So once the Trump administration had agreed to this deal back in the previous May, what alternatives did the incoming Biden administration have but to withdraw? They argue they didn't have any.
Well, there were a number of alternatives. We could have just kept 3,500 troops there, added some drones and air power. The coalition forces of 8,500 largely wanted to stay, and that would have enabled the 15,000 plus contractors to stay who are so critical to maintaining the U.S. provided helicopters and fixed wing aircraft that were critical to the defensive strategy of the Afghan security forces. So there were alternatives. It would not have removed all of our boots on the ground, to be sure, but we would have kept bases in Afghanistan, which are important not just for Afghanistan, but for the regional counterterrorism campaign. And it certainly would have avoided what I think is quite a devastating situation for Afghanistan and for the Afghan people, whom we tried to help for 20 years and have literally left behind, including, I should note, well over 160,000 Afghans, some 70,000 of which qualify for the special immigrant visa because they were battlefield translators, and then their family members whom we've left behind. So, you know, this enabled our would-be adversaries to say that you can't count on the Americans, they're not a reliable partner or ally, and that we're a great power in decline. Now, I think our very impressive response to the Russian invasion on Ukraine, marshaling the world and so forth in response to that, has put that particular image further into the rearview mirror. Nonetheless, the situation I think that we left behind is one that is really quite tragic, quite heartbreaking, and as I mentioned, devastating for the Afghan people.
Now, acknowledging all of that, what the White House claims is that if they had stayed past this deadline, the Taliban would have renewed their attacks on U.S. forces that they had stopped, if you will, killing us because of the commitment to leave by the end of August. Do you buy that?
Well, it's a bit more than that, Andrea. They had stopped killing us because we weren't on the front lines anymore. We had transitioned a year and a half earlier to what was called an advise, assist, and enable campaign, where the only forces that we had on the front lines periodically were some special operations forces carrying out either unilateral counterterrorism missions or joint ones with the Afghan forces. And our other forces were essentially in Afghan headquarters, where we were providing them, again, advice, assistance, and enabling. And the enabling was to help them employ their own close air support and then to bring our drones and manned air support to bear as required as well. We had not lost a soldier in 18 months. That's much longer than the period back to the Doha Agreement, which, of course, the Taliban have already clearly violated by allowing Ayman al-Zawahiri, the head of al-Qaeda, to reside in the safe house in Kabul. And beyond that, you know, we reversed a lot of other policy decisions by the previous administration, the withdrawal from the World Health Organization, from the Paris Climate Accord, from various other international activities of the previous administration. There's no reason that we couldn't have withdrawn from this one. Would there have been an offensive? Yes, I think we could have dealt with it quite effectively with air power. And, you know, yes, the Afghan security forces collapsed under the weight of this simultaneous number of offensives conducted by the Taliban, by the way, helped by our forcing the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban detainees as part of that agreement. But we could have beaten that back, I think. I think it would have been very capable of doing that if we provided the additional air power that was required. And the Afghan forces, over the course of our time there, died 26 times as many on the battlefield as did American soldiers. So they would fight if they knew that someone was coming to the rescue.
You know, you write that the very presence of Zawahiri right in downtown Kabul, so close to the presidential palace, shows that they had protection, obviously, from the Taliban. They were staying in a Haqqani house, a Haqqani safe house. So the White House chooses to say, well, that shows that we can do this over-the-horizon, you know, takedown of terrorists, but does it also prove that the Taliban is breaking the agreement not to harbor terrorists?
Well, I think it very clearly is. The Taliban have always been very close with al-Qaeda, and there's no reason to expect that to change. I mean, one might have thought that since they did that the last time, and of course the 9/11 attacks were planned when they allowed al-Qaeda a sanctuary in Afghanistan and then refused to eliminate that sanctuary themselves, which is why we had to go in. One would have thought they would have learned from that, but that does not appear to be the case. Interestingly, the more worrisome terrorist element from a possible international level is actually the Islamic State Khorasan group, the affiliate of the Islamic State that is carrying out near daily attacks in Afghanistan against the Taliban, certainly, and all generally within Afghanistan and Western Pakistan at this point in time. But recalling how dangerous the Islamic State was when it established a caliphate in northern Iraq and northeastern Syria, this is one that we clearly have to keep our eye on. And I'm very confident that my old comrades, both in the military and at the CIA, are not only capable of doing that, but that they are doing that. Witness the extraordinary operation that took out Ayman al-Zawahiri with no collateral damage whatsoever. But that takes a lot of effort if you don't have bases in Afghanistan or perhaps nearby Afghanistan.
On a separate topic, we're just learning from an unsealed Department of Justice document that there was an Iranian assassination plot to kill John Bolton, the former national security advisor. This at the very moment when possibly the Iran nuclear deal is going to be reconstituted. The final draft is being considered in Tehran. What is your reaction?
Well, my reaction is that the Iranians remain very, very dangerous, and that the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps Quds Force, which presumably the operator who is trying to do this is from, is a very dangerous organization. And one of the things the previous administration did, of course, was to take out the head of the Quds Force when he was visiting Baghdad and planning, we believe, imminent operations against Americans. The elements of Iran have gotten more dangerous in recent years in terms of their proxy elements in Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and other places, again, all enabled by the Quds Force. The Quds Force activities have gotten more dangerous, and the missile, drone, and other retaliatory capabilities have gotten more challenging as well. That said, something that would roll back their nuclear program without having seen any of the details, but if it rolls it back very considerably, that would be something I think that you'd have to have very, very serious examination because it could preclude what might be option B on the other hand, which is something that could open up who knows what if you actually had to take out that nuclear program because it was so close to having a nuclear device, and because our policy is that Iran will not be allowed to have a nuclear device.